This happened when I was a child. I lived in a house with my grandma, mom, and dog. Our house had an unusual layout with no hallways, and each room opened directly into another. The living room is connected to my grandma's room and the kitchen. My grandma's room led to my mom's room, which opened into a large utility room where I often played. That utility room also connected back to the kitchen. The bathroom and washer and dryer were in the utility room, along with a large carpeted area where my toys and a twin bed were located. However, I slept in the bed with my mom. We all started noticing strange scratches on our arms and legs in the mornings. These marks appeared before we even got our dog, so her tiny nails weren't the culprit. One day, while standing in my mom's room, I noticed a dark shadow figure in the utility room. It had no distinguishable features but was shaped like a man. My dog saw it too and started barking at it. I told my grandma and mom, who confirmed that they had also seen the strange figure at different times. My grandma said she saw its reflection on the television, and my mom had glimpsed it out of the corner of her eye. Freaked out, we decided to pray. While we believed in God, we weren't practicing any specific religion at the time. One day, I was playing with my Ken and Barbie dolls on my mom's bed. As I made them dance, I accidentally let Barbie slip from my hands, but Ken's arm moved to catch her. My mom witnessed it too. We stared at each other in shock. I asked, "Did you see that?" And she nodded. Soon after, strange things began happening around the house. Small items disappeared. My grandma and mom, both smokers, always left their cigarette lighters on the kitchen table when not in use, but the lighters would often go missing. Once, my grandma put her lighter down, turned around, and found it gone, only to hear it hit the table and see it reappear in a different spot. Some of my toys disappeared, including the small pans for my Easy Bake oven. My dolls were often found in strange positions I hadn't left them in. Nightmares plagued me regularly, especially of snakes trying to bite me. In one dream, a snake kept hissing at me to shut up over and over. My dog frequently barked or growled at things we couldn't see. In response, we began anointing the house with prayed-over olive oil and praying nightly. When I was 13, something terrifying happened. One night, I went to shower and brought a comb to detangle my hair. The shower had a built-in shelf where I placed the comb. As usual, I closed the bathroom door, even though it was just women in the house, including our dog. I started washing my hair, rinsing with my eyes closed. When I opened them to grab the comb and apply conditioner, the comb was gone. I searched the shower floor, the sink, the toilet, and the cabinet, but it wasn't there. I asked my mom if she'd taken it, but she hadn't. I even questioned whether I'd brought it into the bathroom at all, but I knew I had. I was certain it was the same force that had been taking our things over the years. This time I was fed up. I got back in the shower, applied conditioner to my hair, and demanded loudly, "Give me my comb back." Nothing. "Give me my comb back now." Still nothing. "Give me my comb back in the name of Jesus." Suddenly, the comb came hurling at me from nowhere and hit the shower wall. Keep in mind, I was alone in the bathroom and the door was closed. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Without even rinsing or drying off, I rushed to my mom's room and told her what had happened. Both my mom and grandma believed me. From then on, my mom stayed in the bathroom with me while I showered. Things quieted down after that. The following year, the city bought the land our house was on to build a school, forcing us to move. But that's a story for another time. I live here in the Philippines. When I was 3 years old, my mother and my Lola, which is grandma in Filipino, and I lived in a large building for my mother's business. One particular night, sometime late at night or after midnight, I don't know the exact time. I suddenly woke up in my room. My mom was sleeping next to me, hugging me. The lamp in the room was on, and in its glow, I saw a pale man with small white eyes and terrifying pupils staring directly at me. Even though I was just a child, I was brave at the time and only shed a tear. But then, the pale figure slowly grabbed my hand while opening its mouth and began dragging me into the dark. I don't remember what happened after that, except for one moment. I was being taken upstairs. The stairs in my mother's building were very tall and steep. The most terrifying thing I remember is looking at the figure and seeing its white eyes shining as it stared at me. I screamed and cried so loudly that my grandma woke up and started calling my name. My mom woke up too, and they both began searching for me. Eventually, they found me upstairs in the kitchen, crying loudly. But here's the chilling part. They also saw the pale figure. It was there, its squinting white eyes staring at them before it disappeared into the darkness. Years later, my grandma reminded me of that night, and the memory came rushing back. I was too frightened to respond, but I had to. My grandma told me it was an agta, which is a pale figure in Filipino folklore known to stalk random people for a period of time. She said these entities could even be deadly. I asked her why the agta's eyes were shining. Her reply sent shivers down my spine. Hapit ka na patay, which means you almost died in Filipino. I haven't seen anything like that ever since, but in the Philippines, you should always be careful. These agta are dangerous and can kill people. As per request, I'll share some of my personal paranormal experiences. Just like in my last post, each paragraph will signify a different story, so it's easier to differentiate them all. I have quite a few to tell. The first story I want to share is the one that freaks me out the most. My family has moved houses a lot, but we've lived in this house the longest, almost 11 years. This story takes place there. My younger sister Gentray and I shared a room for most of our childhood, so moving into a new house and sharing a room wasn't new to us. When we moved in, there was this terrifying crying clown picture in our room. It still creeps me out to remember it. Our room was connected to a water heater room that doubled as a storage space. The storage room was all concrete and freezing, a creepy place overall. We played in there often, but I never went in alone. The way our room was set up, my bed was directly next to the door. I could open it while lying down. My head was right next to the doorknob. Now here is the actual story. Gentray and I often stayed up past our bedtime. What little kids didn't? One specific night, we were goofing around in our beds before deciding to go to sleep. After a few minutes of silence, something terrifying happened. Something inside the storage room slammed so hard into the door that it popped open and swung halfway into the room. The door opened into the storage room, not our bedroom. We immediately bolted upstairs to our parents, who didn't believe us. We convinced our mom to come downstairs and check the storage room. She claimed the air conditioning kicked on and made the door open, but I know what I heard. Something had to slam into the door with enough force to make it open like that. Although this wasn't the creepiest thing ever, it happened right next to my head, which gave me a lot of anxiety about sleeping in that room afterward. For the next story, Gentray and I always had a messy room. It was so messy that you couldn't see the floor. Our parents wouldn't let us go anywhere unless we cleaned it. While cleaning one day, our parents left us home alone for a few hours. This was back when we had one dog, an ancient Chihuahua, not that she could have done much to protect us. The kitchen was above our room, and you could tell who was walking up there by the sound of their footsteps and the creaks in the floor. As we were cleaning, we heard what sounded like a small child running back and forth in the kitchen before running out to the rest of the house. We were terrified. We used our shared phone to call a neighbor to check the house. They didn't see anyone outside or inside. This wasn't the only time this happened to me. Actually, it occurred on multiple occasions. One time, I was alone in the living room playing Minecraft. I usually wore headphones to feel immersed in the game, but since I was expecting my mom and older brother to return soon with groceries, I turned the sound down to listen for them. As I played, I heard hushed whispering, a male and female voice. It sounded like my mom and brother, so I took one earbud out and called out, "Do you guys need any help?" The whispering stopped immediately. I got chills and stood up. After cautiously searching the house, I realized I was still alone, with no car in the driveway and no one home. When I checked my mom's location, she was still 45 minutes away in town. I never figured out what those voices were saying, but they were real. Another time, I was in my room, not the one I shared with Gentry. Our neighbors were having a party, so their music was blasting and people were everywhere. Around 10 or 11 p.m., my mom told me that she and Gentry were going to check on the scales at her job and would be gone for about an hour. I stayed in my room, and about 20 minutes later, I heard voices in the kitchen above me. 2 male voices. They were loud, but I couldn't hear any footsteps or the floor creaking. This freaked me out. I called my mom, who told me to lock my door and stay in my room with my pocket knife until they got home. No one was ever found in the house, but the experience still creeps me out. Another time, I was on FaceTime with my aunt while curling my hair in the bathroom. I was home alone, but my 2 dogs were with me. The bathroom door was open so I could hear if someone knocked or came inside. While I was talking, I heard the kitchen door rattle, like someone was trying to open it. I glanced out of the bathroom. You can see the kitchen door from there, but no one was at the door. I brushed it off as my imagination and continued curling my hair, but then I heard the door rattle again. This time I knew it wasn't my imagination. I told my aunt what was happening and left the house to stay at a neighbor's until my mom got home. This house was definitely creepy, and I have tons more stories to share. Let me know if you'd like to hear more.